Crafters, here I am again with another little process video. I've tried to keep it short. This took a long time, but I've edited as much of the stuff that I can so that you can still kind of get the gist of what I'm doing. And you can always ask me questions if for some reason I wasn't clear on something. So I'm working on my quote journal, and my new thing this year, like I said, I wanted to do stencils and mixed media and something different. So I'm starting my page here with some gesso, and it's not completely covering the whole page because it just makes adding the layers, they just adhere in a different way. It'll stick to some areas, and to others it'll create a complete different look. So the next step here is I've decided to use this Distress Crackle paint, and it's by Ranger. And to be honest with you, it didn't crackle. So I don't know what I did wrong, or if it was a little too dry. I'm not 100% sure, but it still created the color that I wanted. And that's kind of what I was after. It was the color. So the next thing I did here is I don't like straight edges. So I wanted to soften those brush strokes, and I use a baby wipe to just kind of move things around and move the paint and take it off in certain areas and just kind of create a more uneven surface. The next layer here, and you should be counting because there's a lot of layers, and I was like, wow, there's just so much you can do, and layers still don't add a lot of bulk to the page, which is something that I really like. So the next layer, like I said, is tissue paper, and you've seen some of my quote journals from the past. I love using tissue paper because it just adds pretty texture, pretty colors, and it really doesn't add much bulk to the page. Not that I don't like a chunky journal, but sometimes it just makes things easy when you can add more color, more texture, more cuteness to a page, and not, make it super, super chunky. So I'm using decoupage to attach just random pieces of the tissue paper, and I've selected a kind of a certain color palette, which is that pink, a little bit of a yellowish tint, gold, kind of the yellow. It's more meant to be like a gold. And then I attached them, like I said, with decoupage, and then I went ahead and dried them. I try to keep this video really short because there's so many steps and there's a lot of drying going on, but I kind of took that out so that you don't have to deal with it. This was probably my most favorite technique here, and I didn't show you what that paint was, but all it is it's some gel medium mixed with some gold paint that I had. And you can use anything. You can use gel medium, you can use straight out paint, you can probably use ink to just, put some sort of a paint or color to the stencil. And then I'm using that old gift card to kind of rub it, because how else are you gonna, it's so thin. But I found that this was the best way to use the stencil to create some sort of a, paint style and texture and add it to the page, and it worked just right. I'll show you here a close-up in a minute. It's very subtle, but it's just so beautiful. I will add a list of all the items that I've used, all the stencils that I've used, and there's another one there. And I kind of had a little hard time, adding paint or spray ink, or, in this case, just a little stamp dabber to add the words to the page. And they're, again, very subtle. It didn't work as well as I wanted it, but it was still okay. My next layer here, so we use paint, we use the tissue paper, we use a stencil, and here's another little stencil, and I'm using another Ranger dabber. This is a paint dabber. It's just acrylic paint, and that was a little pattern. That stencil there has 3 different patterns to it, and I love that one as well. You can see which ones are the ones that I use the most because they're all covered in paint. Now there's another layer here, and this is stamping. So I don't know, are we at 4 layers now? Paint, tissue paper, stencils, and now stamping. I got these stamps at Michael's, and I'm sure they're either Hero Arts or Recollections. I'll have to double check. And that one, it's got a crackle. It's a pattern. It's got a crackle design on it, and I love that one. And again, you can see how much I've used them because they're all stained with inks. That one is just a lot of writing, just some random writing, and you cannot see it, but it's meant to be subtle, and that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted texture, lots of texture, but nothing that was super, you know, superimposed. Next, I wanted to add some little butterflies because I knew this quote, I don't know, it just, you know what, there's just things that I'm attracted to, which is butterflies, flowers, bees, you know, just little bugs. And I thought it would be fun to add these little butterflies there. And so what I did, I used one of those Dover paints, and then I added the paint, but I didn't want it to be too saturated. So I stamped it first on another piece of paper to make sure that it wasn't going to be too strong on the page. And sometimes doing that ghost technique where you don't reapply ink and you just keep stamping on it, and so the next layer will, or the next stamp won't be as strong as the first one. So there is my quote, and it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to attach it. And as you can see, my my sweater changed, my background changed because I was not able to finish this video in one sitting, so I kind of moved away from it and then came back to it. And I decided to add it in this matter, kind of still creating a kind of a, you know, kind of like a little scrapbook page. So I wanted to use some layering, some paper layering there, and you will see how I change my mind sometimes and how sometimes we miss some things. And oh my gosh, did I have to I'm so glad that glue that I used wasn't as so strong, because I've removed that little piece of paper from the page so many times. You know, with mixed media, I sometimes, oh, there. See, I'm like, wait a minute, I like that side better. So I took it apart, flipped it over, and used the other side instead. But what I was going to say is that with mixed media, I don't normally have a sketch ahead of time because I kind of don't know where I'm going. And so, you know, this is why sometimes, you know, you struggle a little longer to decide, where am I putting things? What am I using? So here, this turned out really cool. If you want to use it, you know, I use the edge of my scissors to kind of rough up the edge of the paper. Just again, it's all about texture and adding just interesting things to your page and to your, you know, photos or your layouts or whatever it is that you're working on. So that's another little trick there. Adding a few layers of paper. Like I said, this is my quote journal. In this month, in February, the theme for the quotes are all about expectations. And I think that the reason why I ended up using some of the techniques that I use here, and I'll talk to you about those later, is because expectations are something that sometimes they're not a good thing. I feel that they're not a good thing. You know, we're focused on them, expecting something, and then when something does not happen, then we get disappointed. And so that's one thing that I am trying to remember, and you know, something that I want to get away from is to have expectations. Just do what you love, do what you do, and do it because of the love of it, or because of it's what you like, or it's on your calendar and you're supposed to, but not because you're expecting something to come of it. You know, it kind of goes on with my surrender, one little word for this year. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on this month on my quotes, and that's the quote that you see there. So I decided to, you know, I figure, okay, let me add another layer. Here's another one, drawing. And then I like flowers, and so I drew some flowers there. but you will see that that will change. And I left this here so that you can see that, hey, you know what, we change our minds, we make mistakes, but there are ways to fix those mistakes, or you know, figure out, hey, I changed my mind, how can I make it work? So I added some washi tape to add a little more interest. There's another layer. I mean, there's so many mediums used in this layout: paint, stencils, tissue paper, stamping, drawing, actual paper, washi tape. There's ink right there. See, I'm taking it off, and you will see I'm gonna take that thing off so many times because, again, mixed media, you just kind of go with it, and sometimes things pop in your head, and or sometimes you forget something. You're like, oh, I meant to do this, but I forgot. So I was glad that that adhesive on that little quote there wasn't as strong, and it wasn't damaging my page since I have to keep taking it off so many times. My next step, I decided to use some Color Shine by Heidi Swapp, but I didn't want the pearls of ink, if you want to call it that, just to sit there on top of the page. So I dabbed them with a paper towel just to kind of take them off, but it still left some of the ink behind. Again, I didn't want it to stand out a lot. There, I show you what I was using. Took some of it off, but you can still see it there. You'll see it at the end, all the close-ups. So I'm attaching one more time that little piece of paper, but it's not going to remain there. I promise I will be taking it off a couple more times. And how fun is this? I got to finger paint. So I'm using just some acrylic white paint. The effect that I wanted to, or the one thing I wanted to add, was some dandelions. I love dandelions. They're so beautiful. They kind of go with my let go and surrender theme for my one little word this year, and that's maybe will be my signature. I'm gonna call it a flower, my signature flower this year. And I didn't want to just draw them straight out onto the page because I felt that maybe they were gonna get lost. So I thought if I add a little bit of paint, then they'll actually look like flowers and stand out a little bit more. So there's another layer there, more paint, and now more drawing. And I'm gonna speed this up a lot because it took me a long time to draw the little seeds, or I don't know what to call them, the little pods that dandelions release. So I really love that technique of using that paint there. It's just that it ruins my manicure. Not really, I paint my own nails. I think that's probably why I don't go a lot to get my nails done. Yeah, they get paint and chipped and glue and everything else in them, so it's always, you know, better for me to do them. At least less expensive. So I'm going to, I'm using these awesome pens by American Crafts. They come in different, the tips are different sizes. So I started with a thicker tip and I went to a thinner one, but I kept using the thicker one for certain parts, like the center. I wanted the center of the dandelion flower to be stronger, so I ended up using the thicker. It's a 5 is the number. So they come in 1, 3, 5, and 8. So that's the 8. No, the 5. And that thinner one is the 3. And it just kind of, you know, created the effect that I was looking for. And there, to show you that, you know what, I changed my mind. The flowers didn't match. I was like, what was I thinking? You know, everything should be coordinated. So I decided to cover the original flowers that I had done, and there again I pulled off that little quote and decided to make those other flowers into dandelions. I put the paper back on. I gotta take it back off again because I can't get to one of the flowers because of the vellum. There, I took it off. So I finished that last flower there. I'm gonna keep calling him a flower. And then I move on to another thing that I do in a lot of my pages, which is some doodling, and you'll see it there just in a second. I add it to where the quote is. As I always say, it just makes it stand out a little bit better. And then here's my new most favorite technique to do. I don't know why. I think it adds a little bit of a dreamy effect. And this white pen, I have two. One has a thinner tip and the other one has a broader tip. And these are by Recollections. And I just add little dots here and there of this white paint, and it just adds kind of like that little shimmery or light glitter, I guess. And so I did that throughout the page, and again you'll be able to see that a little bit better when you see the close-ups on the photos. So now I'm moving on to adding a few more embellishment, yet another layer, and this is just adding some die cuts, little die cuts, and these were given to me by a dear friend. She sent me some happy mail and it included tons of these little die cuts. So thank you, Shanley. I love these and I know I'm gonna get to use them a lot. It came with a lot of butterflies. And since I love them, I know they're gonna be gone pretty quick since I'll be using them any chance I get. So I've decided to add something on the upper right corner where the quote is, and I chose this large bouquet of flowers, but it's covering the dandelion that I made, and it's kind of silly that I spent all that time drawing it and now I'm going to cover it up. But I do end up changing my mind one more time, and you will see that in a second. I ended up drawing a few more of those little seed pods from the dandelion just randomly throughout the page. And now I'm adding the final little details to the page, all the little embellishments. I do switch the bouquet of flowers, the large one, for a small one, which meant I did not have to cover my dandelion, and that just made me feel a lot better. I will be adding one last thing. You will see that there is a small area there open on the right page, and I decided to add my one little word, which is surrender. And I cut this out from a digital printout that I got from the Reset Girl. I just cut it up, added it there, and then just wrote with my own handwriting, your expectations. So in the end, it says, surrender your expectations. I hope that you find some inspiration in this to know that if we make mistakes or we change our minds on our work, that is okay. In the end, it is just for you and it will be beautiful no matter what. Guys, thanks again for watching. I'm coming to the end of the video. I want you to know I will add a list of all the supplies that I have used. Please let me know if you have any questions. I tried to keep the video short, so I hope I didn't miss anything. But if I did, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer it. I do have a few more videos here on my channel that might interest you. I have a flip through video of one of my first quote journals, and it includes tons of techniques. I will add a link to that video here at the end, as well as close-ups, so make sure you stop by and take a look at those to see all the fine details. I hope that you get the time to get creative today and get your crafty wiggles out. So thanks again for watching. Until next time, bye.